All right, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? We're going to talk about highways, bridges, and roads, and the $14 billion backlog that we have in this state today. You know, I watched Eddie respond, Ralph Abraham, John Bell Edwards, in a debate the other day, and it was about an hour long. They were talking about a lot of different issues, and backlog was one of them. Highways and bridges, major issue. Y'all know that we've been dealing with bad highways and roads and poor conditions for about 30 years now. I mean, to be quite honest, the problem goes back way further than that, I'm sure. But in 1989 was the last time that we did a tax hike on gas taxes, on gas taxation. And that tax hike had a price tag starting off at $1.4 billion. Very quickly went up to $5 billion, okay? That money was supposed to fix several different projects, 16 different projects from what I understand. You know, some of those projects today in 2019 still have not been issued or addressed. Those issues still have not been addressed, folks. You got issues in 2019 that are still needing to be dealt with from a bill, from a tax hike that was addressed in 1989. So for at least 30 years, we've had poor leadership, very poor leadership. I want to go over something with you real quick, you know, because people say all the time, you know, it's because we got a Democrat politician or we got a Republican politician is why we got problems. Folks, I'm going to tell you, labels don't mean a damn thing. Not today, not anymore. I mean, nowadays, it's just us right here in Louisiana. It's about what are you doing? What are you getting done? 1988 to 1992, Buddy Roemer was the president. Started off as Democrat, ended his term as a Republican. Okay? 1992 to 1996, Edwin Edwards, Democrat governor. Mike Foster, 1996, 2004, was a Republican. Kathleen Blanco, 2004 to 2008, Democrat. Bobby Jindal, 2008, 2016, was a Republican. And of course, we got John Bell Edwards today. So, the leadership that we've had over the past 30 years in the governor's seat, none of them have resolved the issue of our really piss poor highways, roads, and bridges. We have a $14 billion backlog today, okay? Very, very, very big issue, folks. I mean, the fact that it's been neglected for so long is pathetic. I hold our leaders accountable. I hold the lawmakers accountable. But you know what? I hold the constituents accountable too. Because we have to do more than just vote. We got to get involved and hold accountability and make sure that these people are doing what they should be doing. John Bell Edwards says that he has put $2 billion toward roads and highways and that he has worked to fix projects and get things moving forward in regards to this, and that he is on top of this deal. He says that this is an issue that we've battled for over 30 years, and that's true. And he says that we are putting money toward infrastructure. And we have several different projects going on. Says that he has stopped funding unrelated spending. Okay, John? Now, I believe when you say you put $2 billion toward infrastructure on the highways, because right here in Bossier, I can see almost $200 million of that in effect right here. We got the I-20, 220 intersection going into Barksdale Air Force Base. It's $86 million. That's money that Ryan Gaddy worked and leveraged into our community. And you got another $100 million for Interstate 49, another project that Ryan Gaddy had a part of and leveraged to our community. So you got nearly $200 million right there just in Bossier City alone. And I've did my research across the state. There's a lot of different projects going on. South Louisiana, Central Louisiana, a lot of issues being addressed. So I know you're putting forth that money, that $2 billion. A lot of people say that it's because you overtaxed the people, that you have that $2 billion because you really came at us aggressively with taxation. And that is truth, that there is reality to that. You know, John Bell Edwards says that we are ranked 5th in the nation as far as tax burden. He said when he took the office from Bobby Jindal, we were ranked 5th. And he said today, in his last year, in his first term, that we are still ranked 5th. But that is not entirely true, folks, okay? Now, I pulled up Wallet Hub and looked to see where we rank in the nation and we're about middle ground. We're about right there in the middle. We rank 24 in total tax burden, okay? We rank at an 8.51% tax burden in the nation, putting us at 24th. Now, when you break that down a little bit, and you talk about property tax burden, we rank at 2.08%, putting us right at ranked 43rd right there. When you go to individual income tax burden, we are at 1.44%, ranking us 39. When you go in there, when you talk about total sales tax, we're at 4.99%, pretty much 5%, ranking us 4th in the nation. So, when you talk about the tax burden, we're about middle ground, okay? Do we need to raise any more taxes? Absolutely not. We have politicians out there that are talking about raising taxation, more gas tax raises, to resolve this issue of our roads, bridges, and highways. Well, the problem is, folks, we seen that in 1989, that this was raised. We had higher taxation on gas, and a lot of the projects didn't get done in a timely manner, and projects today are still not done. Okay, got Representative Steve Carter says that he wants to introduce amendments into law that would create gas tax hikes in certain communities. They tried to propose a bill to raise our taxes on gas here in Louisiana, and it got shot down recently. The people rejected it, said no more taxation. We're not doing that. Find the money without taking it from our pocket, without taking it from our wallet. So this Steve Carter said, you know what? We're going to try another angle. If a community down in Baton Rouge or New Orleans wants to get certain roads in their community fixed, we're going to put amendments in and see if they want to vote on just community tax hikes, gas tax raises, and just have that go to that community and have that only affect that community with the tax hike. We see the problem with it there is that you're not going to be able to combat big projects. Sean Wilson, Secretary of State of Department of Transportation and Development, said offering local option is not an answer. Mega projects are going to be way too costly. He said some of your big projects like the bridge across the Mississippi River into Baton Rouge would cost around $1 billion. He said the best that you're going to do, the best thing you would be able to do is to generate around $30 to $40 million in your community. So that is not an option. You know, these people keep coming up trying to talk about just raise taxes on people to get what we need. Well, here's the thing, folks. According to Wallet Hub and other sites out there, we range about middle ways right now. We're midway with it as far as tax burden. We can't increase our tax burden anymore. Let me tell you why. The cost of living in Louisiana with certain issues out there is high enough. One of those issues being auto insurance. Our premiums for auto insurance is one of the highest in the nation, folks. Now, if you want to keep adding tax burden to a state that already struggles with poverty, we are in the top 5 with poverty-stricken society. When you have a lot of poverty and you have a high cost of living, you don't need to add more tax burden to the people to get what you need. The budget right now is $30 billion. Taxation has been raised $7 billion in the time that Edwards has been in office. Do we need to talk about more taxation, or do we need to talk about trimming the fat, making cuts, bringing back some things, you know? We need to use what we got, folks. Look, John Bell Edwards says that we have a booming economy. He says that we have a better economy than we've had in many, many, many years. Okay, John, you talking about jobs coming in here. What I'm talking about is good paying jobs. How many good paying jobs do we have here? You know, how many good paying jobs for blue collar America, blue collar nation out here is there to latch on to? Now I'm going to tell you, I don't know a whole lot of people that are going without a job today. Pretty much everybody I know has a job, but a lot of people I know do not have good jobs. They do not have well-paying jobs. And I understand that education and training has a major factor in that. But when you look over to states like Texas, okay, there's an abundance of good paying jobs that start you off around $18, $20 an hour and let you work up. You don't have that in Louisiana. You have the oil and gas industry, which generally, you can start off at a good pay, work your way up, make a good living. But the oil and gas industry is under fire here. Under the Edwards administration, we have a massive amount of lawsuits against the oil and gas industry for coastal erosion, and that's limiting jobs. The oil and gas industry makes up 17% of the work base. They don't even classify the oil and gas industry as a major economic contributor in our state. And that is not good. That is not good, folks, because in many states around there, oil and gas industry is the primary economic boost in states out there, in certain states. And right here in the state of Louisiana, where you got so many natural resources, that should be at the top of the list. That should be it. We keep talking about all these chemical plants coming in here. We keep talking about chemical plants coming in, setting a shop, creating jobs. The problem is, with chemical plants, they typically develop, they get fully up and running, they get people in, and there's no turnover, there's no additional jobs. A lot of your chemical plants establish themselves and don't create new jobs. That's the problem, okay? And so we hear about this economic boom. That's not the reality of it. There's not an economic boom. There is not an abundance of high-paying jobs. We have high premiums, high poverty, and we rank about middle class right now in tax burden. So whatever we got to do to fix the backlog, it's got to come through something separate than more taxation, folks. If you were going to talk about taxation for a highway backlog, the only thing I'd be open to talk about is some type of sales tax. Some type of flat sales tax where you could get everybody coming through the state of Louisiana contributing to that, That's the only thing on taxation I'd want to hear. John Bell Edwards got into a little scuff with Eddie Raspone at their last debate. Not the last debate, but the debate a week or two ago. And Eddie made a good point. He said, we have got to stop trying to tax the people to get what we want. He said, we've taxed the people enough. We got to start looking at other issues. He said, we got to somehow generate the money without creating a higher tax burden. John Bell looked at him and said, you sound a lot like Bobby Jindal over there. You want to do something with nothing. He said, you want to create solutions and fix things, but not generate revenue, not generate a solution. Well, John Bell, I don't think that's what he was saying. I think what he's saying is that we have a $30 billion spending budget. We got fairly high tax burden on the people. I think what Eddie was saying is, let's just figure out how we can tackle this problem of this backlog without taxing the people anymore. And that's what's got to happen. We got to get creative with it. Eddie said something I really thought was a good point. He said, well, first off, he started pointing out our gas tax right now and how it funds DOTD and funds benefits and salaries, but that gas tax, a very minimal level of it goes towards highways, bridges, and roads. Now, if the gas tax is designed to fix our roads and highways, then why is the majority of it not going to that? Why are we funding salaries and benefits for the DOTD, and where is the money that they should have funding in on that? Did Bobby Jindal somehow piss that away? Did he somehow mismanage that in his disastrous 8 years that put us in a bankruptcy? These are things that we got to look at. These are things we got to get into and pay attention to. And if you take the funding from the gas tax, from the DOTD and the salaries and benefits, if you pull that to put it on roads and bridges, then how are we going to fund the Department of Transportation? How are we going to pay for salaries and benefits? So if you pull the money out, what are we going to do? So you see, we have a major issue here. Eddie said something I thought was really a good idea and something to look at. He said Texas charges an additional tax on auto repairs. You take your vehicle in, you take it to get repaired, you pay that price, but you pay an additional tax on that. They take that additional tax and they put every bit of it toward the roads and highways in Texas. That's something we got to do. Another thing Eddie was talking about was matching federal dollars. We somehow got to start leveraging federal money. Okay? I know for a fact that we missed out on Trump's pay-to-play opportunity here recently. We did not get federal funding because we did not want to play. There was something going on. I can't remember what it was. It was a half-cent or 1 cent sales tax that they was wanting to increase in the state of Louisiana to generate $500 million. We were going to take $500 million that we had. No, here's what it was. We needed to generate $500 million. If we were to put that up, Trump was going to match it with federal funds to make it $1 billion in highway infrastructure. That's something we missed out on because a temporary taxation was shot down. Now, I know that I'm sitting here talking against taxes, but this goes back to the sales tax, folks. If we could have got a temporary sales tax to generate $500 million, we could have got that matched by federal funds, but we did not get that job done. And as an end result, we missed out on federal funds. We missed out on dollars matching our state funds, and we didn't get any of that from Trump. And you know what's sad about it? There's so many other states out there paid to play, and they're getting their roads fixed with federal dollars. And you know who's paying it back? We are. Everybody. It's federal money. So even though we didn't reap the benefits of getting these projects and the money for these projects, we're still paying that money back to federal dollars. Texas got $1 billion. They put up $1 billion toward infrastructure. Trump matched them $1 billion, and they've got $2 billion going in road infrastructure in the state of Texas. Folks, they're just doing better business across the state line. We're acting like fools over here. We're not doing things the way that we should be doing. We're not negotiating right. We're not moving our chips. We're not playing this game of chess the way that we should, because we got foolish lawmakers out there that can't get the job done, folks. So what I say is, if we're going to cut that funding to the Department of Transportation, how are we going to replace it? What are we going to replace it with? And I go back to that sales tax, the pay-to-play. A lot of people was against raising that 1 cent sales tax. They was against it to get the pay-to-play money. And look, you know what? I can understand that to a level, because in reality, why didn't we have the money? I mean, taxation's raised up pretty high right now. We went up $7 billion in the past 4 years. So why didn't we have $500 million in a rainy day fund? Why didn't we have it set aside? Why didn't we have the money somewhere to put up to get those federal matching dollars? There's just a ton of things here. There's a ton of issues, ton of accountability that's got to be pushed. And folks, we got to get to it. We got to, constituents out there, we got to stop putting all this in the hands of the lawmakers, because here's the reality. Our lawmakers, for the most part, are incompetent to get anything done. That's why we have such a backlog right here. What do we do about the spending budget? It's $30 billion. We got a higher taxation burden than what we would like to have. If Eddie Raspone or Ralph Abraham get in there, they're talking about cutting spending, cutting taxation. We got to look at things, folks. That's fine too. We need to get the spending under control. We need to find ways to shrink government. We need to find ways to cut back on taxation. But we got to make sure we're doing all this the right way. We got to make sure we're doing it in a way where we're not going to fall back to Bobby Jindal style policies and bankrupt the nation again. Bankrupt the state again. We have a $500 million surplus. So many people out there say that you shouldn't have a surplus, that it's not meant to have a surplus. That just means that the people are getting taxed at a high rate. Well, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't need to do anything about taxation. We need to roll this back. We need to do everything we can to reduce the tax burden on the people in Louisiana. But is it wrong to have a surplus? This is what I would love to see. You roll spending back, you roll taxation back, and still generate a healthy surplus. Because I don't care what these lawmakers out there say. I heard Alan Seaball say, you shouldn't have a surplus. That's just a sign that you're getting overtaxed. I've heard John Schroeder say it too. Well, look, here's the thing. I want a surplus at the end of the year, at the end of paying the bills, at the end of meeting the requirements and paying what needs to be paid. In your house, in your household, when you close your budget out at the end of the month, don't you want a little something extra? Don't you want a little something that you put in savings? Do you want to close your month out in your household on a zero balance with nothing to save? I mean, that don't make sense to me. We need a surplus. We need an amount that we were able to save at the end of the year. But I'd love to see that with less spending, less taxation, and get this state to where it is maintaining 10 solid years of stability. Get our auto premiums down, our auto insurance down, find ways to pull back these lawsuits on the oil and gas industry to create more oil and gas jobs, do what we can to reduce the lawsuit climate, the legal climate here in the state of Louisiana, to encourage different styles of businesses to come into our state. I'd love to see our poverty level reduced back. I'd love to see people that can't make over $8 an hour to have an abundance of jobs where they can make anywhere from $13 to $15 an hour starting off to change their situation. You know, there's so many things I disagree with on the Democratic side, on the Republican side. John Bel Edwards says we have a booming economy. Call bullshit on that. I don't buy that. We have people out there like Alan Seaball saying that, and John Schroeder and everybody out in the conservative track says it's wrong to have a surplus. I'm not buying that. I mean, we have folks out there that say we have the worst tax burden in the nation. I'm not buying that. We have John Bell that says we got one of the best tax burdens. I'm not buying it. You know? I mean, just look at everything. We're getting lied to on so many levels. Told that the backlog on these roads and bridges and stuff is a problem John Bel Edwards created. You know, I mean, I got people saying that the Republicans out there are the cause of it. Democrats. Lawmakers in general in Louisiana have been the problem since 1989. And the problem goes back even further than that. So we got a lot to look at. You constituents out there, regular folks right here in the state of Louisiana, don't leave it up to these lawmakers. They're going to sink us. They're going to shoot holes in the boat. We're going to sink and we're going to drown. You know what I'm saying? They're going to take us out in waters that are too deep and too far out to swim, and they're going to just pop holes in the boat, and we're going to sink. We're going to go down. We're going to drown. We cannot leave it up to them. We got a $14 billion backlog. Okay? We're fixing to know in a few days who our governor is going to be. Is it going to be John Bel Edwards, or is it going to be Ralph Abraham or Eddie Raspone? These are issues that we got to look at. I'm going to tell you another thing. You know, I voted for Ralph Abraham in early voting. Boy, I'm going to tell you though, I was on the fence between him and Eddie Raspone. I like a lot of things Eddie Raspone says. Going back in hindsight, I don't know if I made the right choice. Sometimes I feel like I wish I'd voted for Eddie. But it was a tough one. It was a tough one. So, you know, I voted for Ralph. That's the way I'm going to go. My wife voted for Eddie Raspone. You know, kind of wished I went that way. But anyways, Eddie said another thing. He said taxpayers need to know what's going on out there, where every dollar is being spent. You know, you can go on the state legislative page and you can pull up the documents and reports, and you can read through the spending budget. But for common folks, it is unrealistic to try to read that nonsense. You damn near got to be a lawyer to understand what's going on with that. Eddie said, you know, we need a state checkbook pretty much. Like, we need in simple terms everything that's spent on a daily basis, monthly basis. We need simple terms and simple layouts of where state government is spending money so that people can see it. And I mean, that's exactly what we do need. We need simplicity. I love to be able to log into something and have it just in simple terms what you spent that week as my state government. What you spent $4 million on what? Like, I want to know what you did. $2 million here, $100,000 here. I want to know what's going on. And it's just not that simple. The only way that we can know what's going on is we got to stay in tune to what's going on every day. And so that's it on the backlogs for now. I'm going to really try to educate myself more on this situation and understand where we went wrong in the past. But I know this. A lot of people talking about reform the gas tax and reform how that is. I'm for that. Don't raise any more. Don't put any additional taxation on gas and fuel. Reform what we have. Let's figure out how we're going to pull the funding from the Department of Transportation and how we're going to use 100%. Dang. A bird just flew right in here and ducked off and went the other way. It's crazy. But anyways, we got to figure out how we can take that gas tax and use it primarily for the roads and bridges like it's supposed to be. And then when we do that, we got to figure out how we're going to fund the Department of Transportation. And we got to question this. Do we have too many state troopers? Do we have too much law enforcement? It's a legit question. I'm not saying we do or don't. But we need to ask ourselves, can we trim some of it? Can we trim it down? How are we going to fund the benefits and salaries? These are issues we got to address. And how are we going to do it without raising taxation? Okay. That's it for now. We'll get together soon. I'm going to put another video out here a little bit later on talking about that surplus and other issues. But for right now, that's it. God bless you. Bless the state of Louisiana. Bless this great nation. And remember, we cannot put all the trust in lawmakers if we are not involved and we are not holding accountability and we are not putting pressure on them and we're not working to create solutions ourselves. Well, we will never change for the better, folks. That is a guarantee. Talk to you later.